big hello from Raleigh, North Carolina. Thank you so much for coming to B2B Marketing and More with Pam. Today we have a special guest, Tracy Niehaus. And it's very interesting how I met Tracy. Tracy is actually the board member for MPro, which is Marketing Professionals in MHI Association. And MHI stands for Material Handling Industry Association. So I had a chance to actually did a webinar with their marketing professionals, and I had a great time and got a chance to know Tracy. So Tracy, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Pam. I'm excited to be here.
And Tracy is a senior marketing director for Vanderlande. And what an interesting name. So Tracy, can you tell us what type of company is Vanderlande?
So Vanderlande is a Dutch company with about a 75-year history. We are a systems integrator in the material handling space or the supply chain, working with mostly retail, e-commerce, and fulfillment customers, helping them inside the four walls of their distribution center. So not only hardware, but also software and aftermarket support, lifecycle services.
Wow. So you be managing like supply chain for a lot of companies. So how was the supply chain like in the past 2.5 years?
It's been actually really crazy. I think, as everybody knows, COVID really accelerated e-commerce. It jumped about 5 years within just the year 2020 alone. And that's what most of our customers do. So it's been a busy couple years helping our customers serve their customers, their end customers.
With that being said, you obviously work very closely with your sales team, and sometimes they have unhappy customers, or you have to acquire strategic accounts or strategic companies. And I have heard that you've been working on ABM, which is account-based marketing type of effort. So can you share with us what is the definition, your definition of ABM, and why do you think that is important for B2B companies?
For us, account-based marketing is really a B2B marketing strategy that's based at our high-value customer accounts. So if you think about it, in account-based marketing, you're really acting or treating that account as a market of one. So you're creating highly personalized one-to-one experiences and tailoring that for that specific account. Really, what I've seen at Vanderlande and in past experiences is that for B2B marketers specifically, the sales cycle, as we know, is very tedious. And so therefore, the whole marketing cycle becomes very tedious. And account-based marketing really can expedite that because you really eliminate the need of narrowing down from a very large pool into a very small pool, right? Right away, you're starting with a direct-to-one approach, and that speeds up the entire process. And I think also another benefit of account-based marketing, specifically in B2B, is that it enables us to be able to generate better targeted content because we're not creating something that has to be consumed by the masses.
I think what you are trying to say is there's many benefits. Number one is you complement their sales strategy. And number two, you target it for strategic accounts. And then you use that account strategy as your marketing plan and also customize content accordingly to support these accounts.
I've talked to a lot of people who say, oh, we don't do account-based marketing. But really, if they have key strategic accounts, they're already doing forms of account-based marketing.
Obviously, different companies have a different ABM approaches, or I can call that methodology, and you can call that marketing plan as well. Can you share with us your ABM approach and the marketing tactics that you use to reach out to customers?
For us, we have an 8-step approach. Before we even start that, though, and I think something that's really important to note is that getting executive buy-in for an account-based marketing program is really like the number one thing you have to do. And in fact, oftentimes it makes sense to pick a sort of executive sponsor, if you will, somebody who can be your champion. This requires a lot of time, especially with the sales and marketing alignment. So it's great if everybody's on the same page.
Do you have any recommendation for our listeners or people who watch the video? Who should be the executive sponsor? Should that be the marketing side? Should that be on the sales side? Should that be sales ops? Do you have any recommendation on that?
If you have someone in a sales ops position, that's ideal because a lot of this lies within their responsibilities anyway, but not everybody has sales ops. So if you don't, then my next recommendation would be to go with a senior level executive in sales because that's who the sales reps are going to listen to. I mean, a CMO or a director of marketing could do it, but I think that in order to have the most cohesive strategy, it makes the most sense to have someone in sales be your executive sponsor.
You mentioned you have 8 steps. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. First step is really the selecting those target accounts. For me, that's where sales and marketing really start to work together, is in that very first step, right? Because sales is going to help identify who those target accounts are, define those prospects, and provide insight into the sales cycle. So that's the very first thing you have to do, select the accounts. The second thing that we do is actually take the buyer personas that we've already identified and ideal customer profiles and the buying journey and apply that to that account. Because even inside of one account, right, there could be different targets, different buyer personas, ideal customer profiles that are going to be part of our account-based marketing strategy. So that's the next thing we do.
You really make an effort to know that specific account. You gather enough intelligence about who the decision makers are and what is their buying process. Try to understand that within that specific account before you create your tactic in terms of what you need to do. Is that somehow correct? Okay.
Exactly. And because I work for a company that actually is a full cycle provider from the consultation all the way through the aftermarket, we may have different targets inside of the same company. The person who's making the decision about the aftermarket support or the maintenance programs, et cetera, is not going to be the person who has the buying authority to give a thumbs up for a multi-million-dollar sale. So we have different targets sometimes inside of those same accounts, which is why it's so important, because depending on what your persona is, your journey is going to be very different, and you're going to interact with different pieces of content, right? The president of the company is probably not likely going to be diving into a white paper.
The white paper or the how-to or certain features.
For anybody that's listening closely is going to realize we've got a lot of setup going on here before we even get to the meat of the program, if you will. So our third step is creating personalized content. And that can be a variety of different things that will flow into the tactics. So email, social campaigns, website content, things along those lines. You go away from creating that content that's like a broad sweeping lead gen content that I think most B2B marketers are really accustomed to creating. And you start to create that content that's very personalized for that one-to-one approach. An important part of creating this content is finding a place where you can curate the content. So you don't have pieces of content all over the place, right? There is one portal, because a lot of times sales wants to take the extra steps to educate themselves. And, you don't want to be like, oh, okay, I'll email you this, or here, go here. If you create a SharePoint portal or even a team site or something, whatever your company supports, that way everyone has access to the content. And particularly as you're sending content out and you're alerting sales that you're doing that, they're like, oh, okay, right. I know I can go to this portal and refresh myself on what this piece of content is. So very important third step. Fourth step is really the planning of the campaign or the marketing plan. I know you talk a lot about that. You might have different level accounts, like I was mentioning before, different tiers. You're trying to reach different people. So different touches, right? You might have different ways you're trying to reach them. So you basically create a mini marketing or account plan for how you're going to activate this account.
I like the way you call it mini marketing plan, but specifically for that account. Yeah.
The next step, I think, is a big stumbling block for people. Our fifth step is integrating the appropriate technologies. And when I say that, what I mean is marketing automation. Yeah. I do truly believe if you don't have some type of marketing automation in place, you cannot successfully execute account-based marketing. Because sending out emails is great, but if you're not doing that through a marketing automation program, and there's a gazillion of them out there from like the Gold Elite down to something that is just helping you send emails, but it's keeping everything in one place, you're just not going to be successful because you can't do the tracking that you need to. And that's so important. And I've had multiple conversations with people, especially in our M-Pro group that really want to get started on it, but don't have marketing automation in place. And, I just encourage them, you really, really need to do that.
If you want to do any digital nowadays, you need to make sure you have a back end and they are integrated. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Then you get to the fun stuff, right? You get to start executing the campaign. Whatever the tactic is that you're doing, whether it be some type of advertising on LinkedIn or Google, pay-per-click, something like that. Website enhancements, if you're driving people to your website and you have increased exposure there, you might want to work on, that part of the campaign. Personalized emails, you might be sending those out. Whatever the touches are and the tactics that you're going to use in this sixth step, you just let it rip. It's time to start and get it going. Another really important step is regularly communicating that. So that's our seventh step. And by that, I mean, not just saying well, the campaign's going great. We've been doing XYZ. We alert our sales team with an email. Today, we sent this email out to this target customer and give them a copy of what we sent, give them a link to what we sent so that they have 100% visibility into what's going on in that campaign. You empower sales because you're showing them, okay, here's what we're serving up to this customer. Here's the insights we're seeing. Are they engaging with the content? Are they not engaging with the content? Are they interested? And so if you need to pivot, it's really important to have that information and make that decision together jointly, but really keep them in the loop on everything that's going on. And then our final step is measure the results. Look at your campaign. Obviously, when you're doing that initial structure, you're going to make a decision about what are our metrics? What are we going to be tracking? And make sure that you track those metrics and then you can optimize from those. Or as I mentioned before, pivot if you're not seeing success in certain areas.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Love it that you laid them out so clearly, step by step, in terms of what a marketer needs to do if they try to implement ABM. So you mentioned about success metrics. Do you have a common success metrics that you use to communicate with sales? Or is it different, like from campaign to campaign? Can you share some insight with us?
Most of our campaigns, our account-based marketing campaigns, are very integrated. So we're not just using one tactic. So I'll walk you through a couple of metrics that we have that we pretty much use for all of them. As B2B marketers, these aren't going to be foreign to anyone, except for perhaps the last one. So the first one that we look at is ad engagement. So whether that be, LinkedIn ads or pay-per-click ads or whatever type of advertising you're doing, as marketers, we want to look at the quality of those ads and the quantity of those ads. So from a quantitative standpoint, what's our click-through rate? How many are we getting? Are we tracking to where we think we want to be? But also, an important thing to look at in account-based marketing is the quality. What are the comments people are leaving, particularly at a LinkedIn campaign? What are the logos or the titles of the engagement? And, what are they saying about it? That's really important and can really help you if you need to track differently or pivot or what have you. Second thing is website traffic. And this sometimes gets lost in the mix for account-based marketing. I think most people in marketing know now you can attach those UTM codes, the tracking codes, onto any URL. So you're able to track how somebody's getting to your website, which campaigns are driving them there. And so then you're looking at, all right, which campaign is driving people to what area of my website? And are they sticking, right? Are they engaging with the content there in more than one place? Or are they just coming because they clicked on something, bouncing and leaving? So pay attention to that. Marketing qualified leads. That's what we're in the business of, right? We want to drive those marketing qualified leads. Obviously, every organization has a different meaning for that based on the type of lead that they need to drive to sales, but keeping track of that as well. The last one, I think, is one that often gets lost, but is really important in account-based marketing strategy is how many meetings did sales book? What opportunities are in the pipeline? What's the win rate? What's the total percentage of the pipeline that marketing has contributed to? That's really important. And if you have a good marketing automation tool, it can track all of that, especially working in conjunction with your CRM.
I think there's several kind of more sales centric type of metrics, number of the demos, number of the sales qualified leads, and also number of the meetings. I like that one a lot. And also opportunities, if you can quantify the opportunities. And then lastly, if you can also quantify, articulate your contribution as to win rate, that's even better.
And it helps us in our budget justification. If you can say, okay, we put this much into the revenue of the company, the bottom line, like that will definitely help you be able to justify your budget and ask for more.
Obviously, account-based marketing complements the companies who actually go after, strategic accounts or any accounts that from sales perspective, that's actually important to tackle. And I also encounter working with the different clients that the salespeople would like marketing people to do account-based marketing, but they kind of want to do a hands-off approach and say, you know what, do your ABM and do as much as you can. I don't need to talk to you. What is your thought on that? Do you have any recommendation for marketers who actually have the requests from the sales to do an ABM, but the salespeople's engagement has been lukewarm or they are very busy. They don't want to meet in the middle. So what is your thought on that? Can ABM be successful if salespeople are not actively engaged? Or you have any other thoughts to share with us how to overcome that barriers of the lack of engagement from sales?
No, I don't think it can be successful if sales isn't engaged. In fact, I think it's probably one of the most important attributes to the entire strategy, because that's where it starts. As I mentioned, when we have our 8-step approach, that first step is really working with sales to allocate those target accounts and their buying cycle, et cetera. And this is where having the executive sponsor can be very, very beneficial. Because if you hit those stumbling blocks, because we're asking sales to do something that's not in probably their normal day plan. They're selling, and this is an extra step of further cultivating that relationship. So that's when it really helps to have somebody that's a member of the sales organization as your executive sponsor, because there will be pushback, but I believe that you can't go forward with an ABM strategy without it. And I also think that on the flip side, that's really one of the most significant selling points of an account-based marketing strategy, is that you're empowering sales and marketing to team up and work together and be successful. And really, statistics show that the organizations, when their sales and marketing teams are aligned, they can experience like a revenue growth of like 32%, which is pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, it's very high. Yeah.
On the flip side, for those organizations that don't align, they start losing that percentage. So, it's so important. And again, it starts at the very beginning. You don't want to bring sales into account-based marketing after you've gone through a couple of steps, because then you're making decisions about their accounts that they should really be involved in, because different accounts are going to need different resource allocation and who's going to have what role and what responsibility, so that there's, more of a seamless transition for the customer, right? So they're not it's not disjointed with them. And together, I think you determine what the success of the program will be. We know what we need to do to make it successful on the marketing side, but when we spoke earlier about win rate, et cetera, well, that's on the sales side, right?
That has to come from the sales side. Yeah.
Right. And so you really need to have that walking step in step and being aligned as one of your very first steps. And really, for the organizations that can successfully do that, they're fostering and growing new relationships within those accounts that they have. And that can be really financially beneficial for sales in the long run. So if you set all of that out in advance of the program launching, I think that you get much more buy-in from sales from the start.
Amen. Yeah, when my clients or when I do a workshops and then people will say, you know what, we really want to do this. Sales want to do it too, but they really don't want to put their share of work. Can we implement that? And I always tell them that, don't even start because it's going to fail if they are not meeting you halfway. But at the same time, I also make a suggestion. ABM is one way. It's definitely one of the, I would say, the best way to actually engage with sales and build sales and marketing alignment. Tracy, you have done that and you've done a fantastic job, which is a testament to that. But there are other ways to engage with sales. You don't do ABM. For example, if they only care about leads, can you qualify their leads a whole lot better? So they don't come to you and say, you know what, this lead is no good. There are many ways you can work with sales. And if you know social selling well, you know how to use LinkedIn, you know how to reach out to the prospects, and your salespeople are not so much digitally savvy, and then contribute your learning to them. There are other ways to engage with sales. ABM is definitely one, from my perspective, is one of the best way to build that alignment in a very strategic manner. But if you are listening to this and you want to do it, but your sales are not on board or don't want to put into an effort, think about some other ways that you can do. There are many, many ways to do that.
Account-based marketing strategies aside, we meet weekly every Friday morning with our sales team and go through all of the leads that all of the broad sweeping marketing campaigns have generated to determine what's the best action for them. Are they ready for a call? Do they still need to be nurtured? We really touch on those one by one and give sales the opportunity also to kick back a lead. If they got it and it's not quite ready, I always say in the end, if they're going to be ready to buy, they're not buying from us, they're buying from our competitor. So we might as well keep them in one of our nurture streams until they are ready. So just that open dialogue with sales, so they don't just think you're throwing leads over the fence, like without doing any sort of vetting of those leads before you give them to them. I think that creates a really good strategic partnership.
Sounds like, Tracy, you've been working with sales for a long period of time and in the multiple different companies, especially in the manufacturing segment. If you have one advice for aspiring B2B marketers that's working with sales, what would that be?
Before, I had done a lot of research before we executed our first account-based marketing campaign, if you will. And so I knew a lot of what I've talked about, right? But I hadn't learned it in the real world. So I think that, to your point, it is that alignment with sales and marketing. I think that I was careful to not make that mistake so much, and I really harped on it, probably in excess at times. I think there were other mistakes that we made in some of the tactics and the execution because we didn't know better. And it's, we're used to doing these, broad sweeping campaigns, as I mentioned earlier, to generate all these leads, right? And so, I think people hear all the time you say account-based marketing flips the funnel, but we have to flip our thinking. So, we're used to creating all this content, putting it out to the masses, getting all these leads back in. And account-based marketing takes a bit of marketing patience, if you will, because, the successes are measured a little differently. And I think on that side, the biggest mistake that we made was not paying as much attention to the personalization of the content. Personalized email, I think that's an easy one, right? But there's other things. I touched on the website earlier, but really, now there's so many opportunities for us to touch people along their journey on the website, right? With pop-ups, engaging them in chat, things that were not available many years ago, but now are, commonplace in a lot of different websites. And by doing that, by engaging someone when they come to your site and really tracking where they're going and, all the algorithms and everything that take that into account, you can serve up a better experience for them. You can do the same thing when you're doing advertising, digital advertising, right? With retargeting, putting ads up for them that's directing them in the manner that they want to go. And so I think when we first started this, I was like, well, we send an email with somebody's name in it. Wow, like that, out of all the email they get every day, if we have something right in their inbox that's like, Dear Tracy, blah, 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 And so I think we were really slow to adopt the other types of attribution and that personalization that are necessary in account-based marketing. So that would probably be my biggest initial fail.
I did ask many marketers, especially who implemented ABM, what are some of the mistakes that they make they wish somebody had told them. You are probably the first one mentioning in terms of like very much attention to details and also how you personalize content. And it's so hard to personalize content. I repurposing content all the time. For example, if you and I have this conversation and I was like, oh my God, Tracy, a lot of your insights, great, right? So I create a video for this. I create a podcast for this, slightly different, done by different editor. Then if I really like, I can create a Q&A with Tracy Niehaus, right? And that's a blog post. And I also can have Gretchen, my audio editor, create audiogram, and I can have Scott, my video editor, create just kind of snippet, like audio snippet that we can post it to on the Twitter or the Facebook or any social media channels. And I can also do a videogram or the video clips. And on top of it, these are just repurposing. And I'm not talking about personalizing it. And then you are totally right. Now you create this content, and how do you personalize it in a way that can be used for a specific account? I 100% agree with you. It's kind of challenging.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
I would like to ask you like one funny questions or a question that's kind of like a personal question. What is one place you always want to go and never visited?
So I think my answer is going to make you laugh a little bit, but I just feel this need to see the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis, right?
Please. I mean, I'm not even laughing on that. That's actually on my bucket list too.
So I appreciate you embracing my
my bucket list, bucket list as well. Tracy, it's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming to my show and share your wisdom and the insights. You provided a very solid approach in terms of what marketers can do if they want to implement ABM and the step-by-step. And also the engagement with sale is super, super critical. And you talk about that. And also the success metrics, in addition to the marketing metrics that you do related to campaigns, you also need to actually have a sales-centric type of metrics. Love your insight. And in terms of like personalization of a content, really needs to pay attention to that. I love that. Thank you so much for coming to my show.
Yes, absolutely. I'm flattered that you asked me. So I'm very passionate about lots of types of marketing, but this one in particular. So happy to come today and share my insights.
You rock. Thanks a lot, Tracy.
All right. Thanks, Pam. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Never miss an episode of B2B Marketing and More by following us here on YouTube and leave a comment while you're at it. You can also find episodes wherever you get your podcasts.